Yeah, that's Dave. Dave used to work here. Anyway, I'm just kidding. 3 kinds of beef. First, we have what we call pasture finished. Pasture finished means the animals stay on the ranches, they're brought to size, and again marketed locally. Hotel, restaurants, select supermarkets, the ranch store. Second is something called a Wagyu. Anybody ever heard of a Wagyu? Anybody heard of Kobe beef from Japan? Yeah, you know the beer and the massage and all that? Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. Kobe, though, is a style, a technique. There's a whole lot that goes into it, but it also has a geographic component. It's like when you say champagne, it has to come from France, right? The Wagyu, though, is the breed of those animals. Through artificial insemination and embryo transfers, we have a purebred herd right here on the ranch. We use for a select local market and a growing mainline market. Third, and again, our largest are commodity animals. Commodity animals are born here, raised to about 400 pounds of weight, 8 months of age, roughly, at which point we ship almost all of them to the mainland. They're then raised out on pasture, then they either go to feed yards for the commodity market, or they do go into what are called natural beef protocols, where they're raised by certain companies and sold under those companies' names up on the mainland. Now that's all fine and good. But one of the things it means for us as a ranch is that every year we have to ship almost 2,000 head of livestock over 2,500 miles of open ocean. As an industry, it's over 60,000 head. That's a lot of critters and a lot of water. How do we do it? Well, there's 3 main techniques. First, there's something called a cowtainer. Everyone knows what a shipping container is, right? Big metal box. Well, those are either modified or custom built for us to hold 2 decks of cattle. Feed and water bunks sustain the animal for the trip. With every 8 or 10 cowtainers, a handler goes with them and carries the animals on the trip. Those go in a normal container ship and they wind up somewhere on the west coast depending on the season. Number 1. Number 2. And as a cattleman, I can honestly say, I get more of a kick out of this one than most people do. And that's because, believe it or not, there is a cruise ship for cows floating around out there. 6 decks of cattle, over 3,000 head fit on this ship. Run by a company called the Corral Line. It's a great name, isn't it? Fantastic way to move animals. They change the air every 2 minutes. They wash the ship constantly. Plenty of room for animals bed down. Feed bunks, water bunks. Great way to move cows. Unfortunately, this ship has one pretty major problem. No? No? Nope, it's Danish. Didn't see that coming, did you? Now, a lot of you did, right? Because deep down inside, we know that question. What is wrong with the Danish cow ship? You've been asking your friends, neighbors, haunts, dinner tables. There's one of those lingering questions in your day-to-day lives, right? I can see it in your faces. What is wrong with the Danish cow ship? Well, the reality is there's nothing wrong with the Danish cow ship, but there is a law out there called the Jones Act that states that no non-U.S. carrier can operate between U.S. ports. What does it take for a ship to be Jones Act compliant? Well, first it has to be owned by Americans. Self-explanatory. Second, it has to be crewed by Americans. Same thing. Third, it has to be built in America. How many cow ships do you think there are in the U.S. fleet? That's right. As we say in Hawaii, puka, 0. There aren't any. Nobody's got them and nobody builds them. If I want somebody to build me a destroyer, it's no problem at all. Just can't seem to get a cow ship. Ship. Moving on. And the last one, which is the real sticking point, has to only ever be owned by Americans. Once it leaves U.S. service, it cannot be brought back to run cargo or passengers. Because of it, those animals actually wind up in Vancouver, Canada. And then we truck them to Texas. I'm letting that sink in for a second. Because you know what it brings us to now? Our third technique, which is we load them in a truck. Then we drive them to Kona, where we load them on board a 747 and fly them to the mainland. Guess what? They get more legroom than you guys had coming in, okay? Now, the cargo capacity of the 747 is close to 400,000 pounds. But until very recently, we were only allowed to put about 50,000 pounds cow in there. Why?
I thought he was making.
Well, movement is a good guess, okay? Especially when you consider these are herd animals, right? And if that whole batch of critters were to jump up and run from one end of that aircraft to the other, you would have real issues on that flight. Fortunately, they are kept confined. Believe it or not, the limiting factor on the aircraft is heat. The amount of heat 50,000 pounds of cow produce is all the air conditioners can reliably handle. They're not just cargo, they're critters, they generate heat, right? Well, we got this thing going. Engineers came in, checked out the cows, checked out the aircraft, did the math, carried the one. 100,000 pounds, no problem. Okay, so initially we flew out of Honolulu, so we were over there. We load that plane up about 10:30 at night. This thing goes blasting down the runway heading for California. About 5:30 in the morning, this thing comes rolling into Los Angeles. A little over 100 degrees with water running down the walls on the inside of the aircraft because it's a wet heat. Now, for the record, 100 degrees will not hurt a cow. The cows are home just fine. The only real problem is those three guys up front in their boxer shorts wouldn't do it again for us. Just going to let that image hang there a second. Because of that, they limited us to 50,000 pounds of cow. Now, just recently, we got some new aircraft in with larger air handling systems, so they bumped us back up to 100,000. It's helping out quite a bit. Now, a couple commonly asked questions. First, how many people work here? We have 11 employees and 2 contractors. Big part of that, though, if you go around this building and look that way, you'll see a row of homes. Almost everybody that works here lives right here on the ranch. Some people have been here for a few years. Some people over 40 years. One family's been here for 5 contiguous generations. So long-term employment, a little different up here on the mountainside. Second one is, where do we get our water from? Water and agriculture, of course, go hand in hand. We are extremely fortunate in that we have the headwaters of what was called the Kahua Ditch up at the top of the mountain here. The Kahua Ditch was originally dug to help feed the sugarcane plantations in Kahua, dug along the edge of one of the big valleys, Honokani, if you look at a map. It was then bored by hand in tunnels through the bedrock to the headwaters of the valleys. We maintain the upper ditch and tunnels, take a small portion of the water out of it, which is then gravity fed down the mountainside. Now, real quick, when I say ditch, a lot of people think something scratching the surface, water trickling through it. On a rainy day, this thing produces close to 40 million gallons of water. Very, very large system. We pull less than 100,000, the rest dumps back in the valley. So with that, are there any questions?